we go to the main event of Hollywood Hogan versus Rowdy Roddy Piper. And what you've got here is you've got a huge main event between two huge stars of the business. And it's one that the WWE never managed to get onto pay-per-view. We've seen them at WrestleMania 1. They were on either sides of a tag team. And this match is one that really, it could have been booked at any WrestleMania up till about WrestleMania 9, I think. And it would have been an immediate sellout. And it just never happened. Now, I have been reading, I've mentioned before, Roddy Piper's autobiography, and it comes from 2002. He barely mentions WCW in it. You wouldn't know reading it that he was in WCW at any point. He doesn't talk about this match in the slightest. Right. He does mention in passing that he says, I've sent a tape into WCW with a couple of angles that I want to do. He said, but, I just haven't heard a reply. And this is in 2002. They'd actually been bought by the WWF a year before. They'd shut down. And it's that sort of book where you go, I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. He's like, it starts off with him going, I want wrestling to be far more moral than it is, which is why I've joined the good guys and gals at XPW, I think it is. It's not XPW. Nice. It was the one they did in MTV, Wrestling Society X or something like that. And I looked at that and I was just like, that place lasted 3 months. It's loads of bits like that are bad. But Piper mentions in this book, and I brought it up a couple of shows ago, I just mentioned it, but he refused to lose by pinfall from 1984 onwards because he was so worried about losing his heat. And I do think his refusal to lose, I think oddly, rather than protecting him as a wrestler, I think it did begin to harm his career because it limited really what you could do with him if he was always refusing to lose. You were like, well, I can't just have you win.
Yeah, you're just not versatile anymore. I can't work with you.
Completely. But, he was adamant about it. And he was especially adamant about losing to Hulk Hogan. So I think he felt the two of them were the yin and the yang, that Hogan was the one who Vince McMahon had pushed, but Piper was the one who got over because the fans loved him. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with everything that Piper says. I think, Piper obviously was liked by the promoter and Piper was a great talent, but Piper has very much that sense of I was undeniable. Hogan was the office's choice. And he does seem to think it would have been great if Hogan had died and then I could have been the number one and I'd have been the biggest star in the world. And I don't think it would have quite worked the same. He's come back at this point, and when he comes down to the ring, it's like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. He's got a real sadness, and when he comes out, it's like he's preoccupied with, like he's just seen like a baby go under a car or something outside, and then they've made him come in. Yeah, I just can't. I'm just going to have to go into autopilot and do this, And what you want him is you want him a rowdy maniac who runs out with his arms behind him, whipping his kilt round his head, screaming, and instead you sort of go, is he really drunk, or is he or is he just going to get on the mic and just go, I just can't do it tonight.
I can't do this.
I've got real issues, okay, about, he comes out, his WCW run of this period is for me distinguished most by the single worst series of homemade t-shirts that any main event wrestler has decided to wear in the history of the sport. And on this one, on the back, is this really horrible, slender Tasmanian devil from Looney Tunes that's dressed up as a Scotsman. And it's so shonky and off the back of a sort of Hong Kong market stall. It's awful.
And no one said, don't wear that. Don't wear that. You can't wear that. You can't work there.
Just wear your leather jacket and one of your Roddy Piper t-shirts. I'm going to wear a Frats t-shirt about my fraternal brothers who have died too young in this. Oh, my fucking God. Oh, God. Hi, Vince. This is WCW. Look, I know we don't speak very often. How do you deal with Roddy Piper? How do you deal with him? But Jesus Christ, Pete. Hogan is in the prime of the NWO. He has been revitalised by becoming a bad guy. And here he is facing a nemesis from his past who he's never been able to beat. He comes down with Ted DiBiase and with Vincent and Miss Elizabeth, and they announce him that, originally from Venice Beach, California, he says, and now residing in Hollywood, California. Too close to distinguish between them.
Down the road, exactly. Just make something up.
Yeah, although I did find it irritating And I thought, that's good heel work. I don't know if I'm supposed to find it irritating. But then Piper comes in from Glasgow, Scotland, now a US citizen, residing in the great northwestern city of Portland, Oregon. And he's fucking Roddy Piper.
Yeah, I don't care where people live. Do I care where fucking Jushin Thunder Liger comes from? He comes from space.
He's
For
space.
fuck's sake. He's
With
space
Jericho,
man.
there was a period where Chris Jericho, working in the WWE in the early 2000s, Vince McMahon decided he could no longer be from Winnipeg in Canada because he felt that people wouldn't like that. So they rebuilt him as being from New York City, which, people hated it, and it was just weird. But you've got the rowdy Scotsman, Roddy Piper, and all you're doing is going through and going, let me tell you, he is a US citizen. You might as well say that this is just a fucking gimmick. He's actually from Canada. He is, I believe, from Saskatchewan. And why not? If you're going to ruin the gimmick, then ruin it all. Fucking ruin it all. Piper, he does talk about this in his book, and it's sort of fascinating. Is he sort of says, I don't really do wrestling, I do fighting. So he could wrestle, Piper. He'd been trained by the shoot specialist judo Gene LaBelle, but he had another part of his gimmick, which is he said, I wanted people to think that even if wrestling was fake, I wasn't. So instead of doing wrestling, he just brawls. He just goes in there and does punches and kicks, because he says, if I was going to have a fight, that's what I'd do. If people see me, they will go, all of the others wrestle and perform, but when Piper comes out, he's just fighting, and he's fighting to the death, and he is real. He adds to that for me where he comes out in this very basic wrestling kit, Pete, and it looks like it's been stuck in a bag and it's been carried around for 20 years.
Blue, it's those kind of shorts where it really accentuates your love handles a little bit. If you got them, it's just a bit too high. It's Hacksaw Jim Duggan's pants. They're just a bit too high.
They're beginning to creep. They're beginning to creep to hide the fact that you've got that little pot and it's harder to burn away. And all of the colours he's chosen are classic ones where if you were a wrestler and you didn't have access or the inclination to wash your kit very often, this is the ones that show up the dirt less. I looked at that and I was like, you are legit. This is a legit look. And he is sweating so much when he comes down to the line. And again, I looked at that and I went, you are a proper 80s wrestler, because I think you've taken a lot of cocaine before this. And you've come out and you're ready for this.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when he does come out and he's looking perturbed and everything, I think that might be sort of reaction to whatever he's done, where he's overacting and overthinking because those senses have been slightly dulled by the drugs. There's a lovely bit where Piper puts a headlock on Hogan, and Hogan does a back suplex on him, and Piper just keeps the headlock on and rolls it back over and does it again. And again, what he's doing is he's going, I'm not like these other wrestlers. I'm not going to lie on my back when that happens. I'm going to just hold on because I'm not a fake. There's a little bit where Hogan starts kicking Piper's hip replacement scar, and they all begin talking about his hip operation. I don't think it's a great idea to go on about your main eventer having had a replacement hip.
Because it's the one thing that we know for a fact. If you've ever known anyone who had a coil fitted, none of them ever have a good word to say about a coil. It seems to be this barbaric fucking Victorian torture device for women, and it never works. It always stays in the body. People don't know whether they're in the body or not. Doctors forget about them.
I don't know anymore. I've got a few years to go before this is going to become another thing that crops up in our family. Does the coil still exist?
Yeah, people have coils.
Still get it done.
Yeah, you can.
It's like a spring. It's like a slinking. They just go, there you go.
Let's go bash it up there. There we go.
Yeah.
It's infected. Well, yeah, they all do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it guarantees.
Does it make blood come out my nose? Yeah, because that's what the coil is. It's horrible.
But I tell you what, it'll make you think twice about having sex, you dirty devil.
But everyone who has a hip replacement, however old they are, they all say it's the best thing they've ever done, and they should have done it years ago. So it's great, but at this point in the 1996, very much the reserve of grannies.
Pensioners. That's exactly it. And funnily enough, I mean, because of hip replacements, you do sort of go, oh, it's stronger than ever before. And instead of doing that, they're like, look at this decrepit old man. The bit where DiBiase trips Piper is a bit that I loved, and it's Hogan actually buggers this up. So when Piper goes into the ropes and DiBiase trips him, Piper sort of gets stuck in the hands. He doesn't just fall over because he's real. So DiBiase holds onto his foot and Piper reaches along the ropes to try and get to Hogan before he sort of falls over. And Hogan doesn't quite know what's going on and he just thinks Piper is doing some kind of move. So by Piper touching him with his hands, Hogan rolls onto the floor underneath him and Piper sort of falls on him. It's a real shame because Piper did everything right there and Hogan overreacted. It really did. It looked a bit like backyard wrestling. And the moment that happens, the crowd do go deathly quiet after that. And it's like a spell has been broken, where they're suddenly like, oh, this is actually not... This is falling apart a bit.
That's probably why the dude ran in.
Yeah, well, almost immediately it wraps up. So Hogan misses a leg drop, which is very much the, oh, is he about to get pinned they've been doing now in the last few years. Piper starts hopping around, which is, again, he's got the hip thing, but he's now really drawing attention to the fact that he's essentially, partially disabled. I mean, it's just not what you want in a main event, that level of weakness. I think normally you would say a babyface looking weak is tremendous, but I think that's just too sort of visceral, too big an obstacle, really, for the fans to go, I feel comfortable about this. The Giant interferes, and suddenly, Pete, a fan runs into the ring.
Ted DiBiase gets a coffin, and he's like, what the hell just happened?
DiBiase was no use at all in that. They run straight past him, and DiBiase obviously has that thing of being hit and just going, what's this? Is this some angle that I've
Is this something about... Is this another run-in? There's just a lot of run-ins in this show.
Referee Randy Anderson, man... of the hour. The guy's got past DiBiase, Virgil. He gets into the ring, and Randy Anderson is waiting for him. The ones you never suspect. And Randy Anderson is just punching this guy, wailing on him. Hogan starts kicking him in the face as hard as he can.
It's difficult for Hulk Hogan because what he'd like to do is bray fuck into this guy, knee him in the head, kick him in the head.
He looks like he's pulling them back, and it looks
massively.
Like he's also still wrestling him. And I think that's proper Hogan. That's proper Hogan going, I am going to make it look like to the boys that I'm there, but at the same time he's like, I'm not going to be on a fucking legal suit for this.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to sell fucking t-shirts at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If you're a hero,
he's not going to go after fucking Randy Anderson. Doesn't know this fucking guy's name. Who does? But you know what it's going to say at the top? It's going to say Hulk fucking Hogan. Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Well done, WCW, because what normally happens when a fan runs in is they go, right, cut camera, cut to number 3 so you can't see it. And here they're just like, let it run. Let it run.
Let it run. See 3 men. I want to see his face that's clearly a bit beaten up.
Yeah, I want to see Doug Dillinger come down with WCW security and just hold him there and just keep him there. And I want to see the crowd looking
shocked.
Yeah, I want
to see the crowd looking shocked. I want to see
every last bit of it. And WCW are like, we can make that happen. We will make that happen. Piper then slaps on the sleeper hold. And Hogan, really surprisingly, is out. Yeah. His arm doesn't come up for the 3. Everyone is surprised. They're so surprised. There's a weird reaction where they're just like, holy fuck, what's that? This was Hulk Hogan's first clean loss in the ring since WrestleMania 6 in 1990 against the Ultimate Warrior.
That's wild.
Lost clean. But Piper doesn't win the WCW title. WCW never made it clear at any point in the build-up to this that this wasn't a title match. They just entirely avoided talking about it. And what happened, of course, we know from, the fact that Piper didn't want to lose, is that Piper didn't want to lose, but Hulk Hogan didn't want to lose the belt. So Kevin Sullivan, who was the booker at the time, had basically said he wanted to give Piper one good world title run. Along with Jake the Snake Roberts, you could really say that Piper and Roberts are the 2 guys who are the highest level who never had a world title run, if you like, of that sort of 1990s WWF Legends period. And Piper was always seen as being such a big star that he never needed the belt. But there was a sense, I think, from Kevin Sullivan that Piper had earned it, and it would be a nice thing for him to say, my name is up there with the greats of this business. And what really basically happened is that Piper had agreed and said, yeah, do you know what? I think I really would like that. And they had agreed that Piper would beat Hogan for the belt at Starrcade. But then Hulk Hogan stepped in. He began saying, I don't want to lose to Piper. In real life, there was enmity between Piper and Hogan because they were the 2 big stars. They worked against each other. And they just had a bit of jealousy and, coldness towards each other. Scott Hall went to Hulk Hogan and said, look, why don't you do this, right? Do it once, make it non-title, and Piper can win. And then he's happy, you're happy, and we can all carry on. And that's what Hogan ultimately suggested. So they basically made a thing where they said, well, Piper isn't contracted to WCW, so he couldn't actually win their belt. And this had been billed as a grudge match. So Piper didn't want the belt on the line in storyline because this was about like two men and it wasn't about the title. What they would do is they would book a rematch at Super Brawl 7 in February 1997 that would be for the belt. But at the same time, this was the right end for them to do. It gave the fans a big win over Hogan that was a rarity. It was a big loss for the NWO, who had previously, seemed absolutely dominant and unbeatable. And it showed that Hulk Hogan also wasn't this unbeatable, dominant champion, but he was sort of a shithead who weaseled his way out of losses, and he kept his belt by cheating and by stretching the rules and things. So it did all, luckily, in that funny way that WCW, even when they make bad mistakes and get into trouble, at this period, even the mistakes seem to go right and they seem to make sense. And it's having that weird moment where you can do no wrong. And this is WCW's moment. They do really quickly turn this around at the end to be all about the NWO. And Hogan starts demanding that Vincent brings the title belt down to the ring so that people at home and in the arena know he's still the champion. And that's confusing when you watch it. He keeps on saying it 3 times. He's like, bring me my belt. Bring me my belt. That's right. Bring me my belt. The belt comes out and you just hear Hogan go, camera back to me if you get a chance. Piper, non-title. I killed you, Piper. I'm the champion.
Sorry, what an effort by Roddy Piper. Camera back to me if you get a chance. Piper, non-title. I killed you, Piper.
And so even in that bit, it's a classic bit of Hulk Hogan there, where you've given everyone this match, he's lost, and then he spends 3 minutes just repeating over and over again, I'm the winner, non-title. Credit to Hogan, though, he then does a wonderful spit right into the lens, and it just drips off, and it looks brilliant. And I thought to myself, if you ever sort of think, is Hulk Hogan overrated, watch that spit, because that guy delivered so much spit at the exact right moment that you have to go, the guy is just one of a kind.
Yeah.
That is a lot of spit.
I'm the champion. I killed you, you pimp. Classy man. Yep, that about sums it up for the NWO.